There are a few things that cause greater frustration than plateaus. That's because when we embark on this journey to reshape our bodies, we have this unrealistic expectation that everything is going to happen in a linear fashion. That every week we'll lose 4 pounds, and in just a few short weeks, we'll be at the weight and size that we set out to achieve. But like most things in life, it's not that simple. And it just doesn't work that way for anyone. There's ups, and then there's downs, and then there are plateaus. So the question is, what causes us to plateau in our fat loss and our body reshaping efforts? For the answer, just think back to our biggest loser example. So our metabolism slows in response to low energy intake, too few calories, adapting to greater energy output, or both. The body recognizes it has jobs to do, and when it realizes that not enough energy is being supplied, it has to make an adjustment. It needs to downregulate energy needs to make efficient use of what is available. So in my wife's car, there's a little green button with an image of a leaf on it, and this sits right on the dashboard to the left of the steering wheel. It's the economy mode button. And when we want or we need the car to be more fuel efficient, well, we can just push that button. Now, I can't stand being in this mode because suddenly the car loses a lot of its power. However, when we're in this mode, the car is a lot more fuel efficient. So whenever her car gets low on gas, but there's no time to stop and fuel up, we can just simply hit that green little button and the car will use the fuel that it has more efficiently. Now, this is ideal for when you travel a little bit further or, need just that little extra, but it's not ideal when you need the car to actually perform, like when you want to slam on the gas and speed around that person that's going 10 miles per hour too slow in the left-hand lane and refuses to move over. If you're one of those people, please obey the rules of the road and move over for the rest of us who are trying to get somewhere. Thank you. All right, guys, I'm just kidding. But here's the deal. The main regulator for these adjustments in metabolic response, the economy mode button of your body, is leptin. Leptin helps us to control our appetite and our energy expenditure. Once again, just like a thermostat. Here's how leptin works. When we gain fat, we increase our secretion of leptin. When leptin is elevated, our appetite decreases and our energy expenditure increases. Now, this should eventually lead to fat loss. When leptin is working the way it's intended to, our appetite and energy expenditure is tightly regulated to ensure we don't become overly fat. So how come we do get fat? The reason is, just like we can become insulin resistant when too much insulin is secreted because of the types and the amounts of foods that we eat, the same thing happens with leptin. The brain is not receiving the message to shut our mouths and to get moving. But the problem isn't just one of overeating or the mass consumption of processed carbs and fats. When we lose fat consistently over time, leptin naturally decreases. And this naturally increases our appetite and slows down energy expenditure, which leads to us regaining fat. So the longer and harder we push fat loss, the harder leptin pushes back. Now do you see why our biggest loser contestants, your friends, family members, and maybe even yourself have rebounded after a crash diet? The key is this: you can outsmart your hormones. Now, this begs the question, how can we make leptin our friend? How can we have it work in our favor? And the answer to that is refeeds. So what's a refeed? A refeed is a strategic increase in calories to help normalize leptin levels. Let me repeat. A strategic increase in calories to normalize leptin. It's characterized by a 25 to 50% increase in calories. Now, that increase in calories will typically come in the form of carbohydrates. Now, wait, what? All this time, Mike, you're telling me to limit my carbs, and now you're telling me to eat them. Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. Like I've said before, I don't play the food demonization game. Freedom from food restriction comes from understanding what certain foods do in your body. When you understand this, then you can decide what to put in, and just as importantly, when to put it in. A refeed is one of those when moments, and carbs are the key. Like a good carpenter or a builder, you need to know which is the right tool for the task. People often will come with concerns about refeeds when they've been low on carbs for a really long time. They're fearful that the increase in carbs will cause them to regain fat. And though you might notice an initial increase in weight following a refeed, that is just your body holding more water than usual due to higher glycogen. So let me pause there for a moment. 1 gram of glycogen in your body holds 3 grams of water. So let me address, though, why this shouldn't be a concern. First, as we've discussed at length, carbs in and of themselves don't make people fat. Refined carbohydrates, added sugars, processed foods, and unhealthy fats cause people to get fat. Stop eating those foods, you stop getting fat. Second, when your body is ready for a refeed, your muscles are ready to accept the additional carbs you are consuming. So in this case, you could think of your muscles like being an empty suitcase. When you do your refeed, you're simply packing that suitcase, but you're also being sure not to overstuff it to the point that everything is spilling out onto the floor. The contents of the suitcase will be used up over the course of time and basically between then and your next refeed. So as that glycogen is being used up, you'll hold less and less water and your weight will come back down eventually. But here's the best part. Eventually, your weight will come down past its previous lowest point. And that's because in addition to stuffing your muscles with what they need for peak performance, you've flipped the switch on leptin. So with the switch on, your body is free to release fatty acids to be used for energy. When you are ready for your first refeed, it's best to stick with unrefined carb sources. So here's a list of starches which are great to use for your refeed, or simply refer to the list on your meal plan. Now, after you have become fat adapted, you'll implement a refeed every 7 to 14 days, depending upon when you sense the need for one. Or if you prefer, you can just have a set schedule if you're the type who you just need stringent rules. Now, on your refeed day, your protein intake should remain right around what it is normally. However, your fat intake should be lower than normal since you're going to replace many of those calories with calories from carbs. Plus, this also expedites the uptake of carbs to your muscles. So during this time of refeeding, your body may not be accessing fat for energy at the rate that it normally does because of the additional carbs. So it's better to lower fat in this instance in order to avoid storing too much of it. It's also best to schedule your refeeds around days that you'll be training. This too helps with transporting carbs right into your muscles. Now, understand one thing, a refeed is not a cheat day. As far as I'm concerned, a cheat day does not exist. If you choose to eat junk, it's a choice. It's not a cheat. But in fairness, we are human, and all of us, myself included, want to indulge from time to time. So in the next video, you and I are going to have a very real and candid conversation about this and where the pizza, bagels, ice cream, and all the other tasty treats fit in. But before that, the last point I want to make is this. The faster or the more you lose weight, the more you'll need refeeds. Now, while that may seem counterintuitive, over time, this is what will allow you to continue dropping fat when you would otherwise plateau.